Hello YouTube, today we're going to be covering Ahri, the Nine-Tailed Fox, in our Season 6 Patch 6.10 guide.
Let's have some real fun.
For more of our champion guides, you guys can go to our website, which is www.egamingtv.com. If you're interested in opportunities to win free skins, you can go over to our Twitter at egaming_TV. We do lots of skin giveaways, and we do have one currently running, so if you are interested, make sure you head over there and send us a follow. Ahri is a mobile mage assassin. She uses skill shots and her high mobility to take out single targets with ease. We'll look at that a bit more in depth by pulling up our pros and cons. From just a quick look at this page, you can see that she has a lot more pros than she does cons. With her high single target damage, CC in her kit, and her high mobility, she is one of the best mid lane gankers in the game. With all of these pros, this makes her one of the easiest champions to snowball with if in the right hands. She also becomes extremely safe in lane post 6. She pretty much has a 3-use flash on a 110-second cooldown, which is ridiculous to have in lane for people trying to gank you. This of course is great to be used offensively if you are looking to gank and you need to close a big gap on a target. Now, although she does have pretty good single target damage, her AoE damage is lacking unless you can land a Q on an extremely clumped up team. She doesn't have the largest mana pool, which means she can struggle with her mana in the early game. She is, however, relatively safe in the mid lane since she does have her charm, so this may not be a big issue and you'll get your items eventually and solve this. As I did say, she does have a lot of skill shots, so she of course is very skill shot reliant. She by no means has the hardest skill shots to land, but for somebody that is new to Ahri, this may take a little bit of learning. Ahri's last con is that she's very squishy. She does, however, have high mobility, which can help negate this. Since you are able to dash around so often, it doesn't really matter how squishy you are if you are avoiding everything, so make sure you do it. For our Masteries, we go 12 Ferocity and 18 Cunning. Focus on getting as much damage as possible and a little bit of added sustain. Since Ahri is a relatively quick burst champion, we do take Thunderlord's Decree as it can help secure kills. I suppose the best alternative would be Deathfire Grasp just for a little bit of added harassment, but Ahri is a champion that does go for quick burst kills, so I would still always stick with Thunderlord's Decree. If you find that you're somebody who does spam a lot of spells and have major mana issues on Ahri, you can get the 3rd tier Cunning talent that does give you some mana regeneration. In this build, however, we do rush a Morellonomicon to get the mana regeneration from that item, so usually this isn't that necessary. For Ahri's runes, we get 9 greater marks of magic penetration, 9 greater seals of scaling health, 9 greater glyphs of magic resist, and 3 greater quintessences of ability power. In total, this gives us 14.85 ability power, 7.85 magic penetration, 12 magic resist, and 216 health at level 18. These runes will give you some nice ability power for last hitting minions and harassing the champion, and the magic penetration to get through any magic resist they may have. We take the seals of scaling health just so we can trade a little bit better in the mid lane and win our engagements. Ahri is a relatively short range mage, so this is a great thing to have. You can take the armor as an alternative if you do want, but I do like the scaling health in the mid lane. The magic resist, needless to say, is great against all sorts of AP mid laners as we won't take as much damage from their harassment. One other alternative you could get in this rune page would be some movement speed quintessences. This would be ideal for the player that roams over and over and over. Even for those players though, you may want to stick with the ability power as you do have some great mobility anyways. Alright, so now we arrive at our summoner page and surprise surprise, it's Flash Ignite. Flash is great on Ahri since it has a lot of defensive and offensive uses. This can allow you to escape from champions or can be used to chase opponents if needed. Now since Ahri is already extremely safe due to her ultimate, she'll only really need to flash for a super aggressive kill or, if she obviously doesn't have it, to escape. Ahri is generally a champion who finds herself close range also due to the mobility from her ultimate. She also has to be relatively close to her target for her W to go off and hit them, so of course that's another reason she has to be in close range. Since she is a high damage assassin and, of course, like I said, is close to her target, Ignite will help secure some kills. If you're against an incredibly easy mid lane champion, or if your top laner doesn't have teleport, then you may want to consider taking teleport yourself. Now let's take a look at each of Ahri's abilities, starting with her passive, which is called Essence Theft. Very simply, whenever Ahri hits an enemy with one of her abilities, she gains a charge of Essence Theft and can gain up to 3 charges per ability cast. When she reaches 9 charges, her next ability heals her between 3 and 18 plus 9% AP for each enemy hit. This is a great ability to have in the lane phase as it adds some nice sustain to Ahri. You can simply toss your Q over minions, gaining 3 charges each time. You do this 3 times, and then of course your next ability will heal you. Early on, this can be somewhat hard to do as she is rather mana hungry, but later on in the game you can get tons and tons of sustain out of this ability as you can keep spamming your abilities. Next is Ahri's Q, which is called Orb of Deception, and it is her bread and butter ability. When Ahri uses this ability, she shoots out an orb that does damage to enemies it passes through, and when it comes back it does damage as well, but it does it in true damage form. The damage per pass is between 40 and 140 based on the rank of the ability, plus 35% AP. It's also worth noting that when the orb is traveling, Ahri gains 215 bonus movement speed, which decays down to 80 over 0.5 seconds. The range of the ability is 880, the speed is 1700, the cost goes from 65 to 85 mana, and the cooldown is always just 7 seconds. So this ability right here is your main tool for clearing minion waves and poking enemy champions. The range is decent and the speed is pretty good as well, so although it is a skill shot, it's not too incredibly hard to land. The movement speed you do get from it as well is rather nice since you can make sure that the second hit will go off and you will get that true damage. Generally, people are going to, of course, try to avoid your orb, so having that movement speed makes you faster than them, so it can pull back through them. Since this ability is great for clearing minion waves and poking down the enemy champion, we of course max this one first. Now we're going to look at Ahri's W, which is called Foxfire. Ahri summons 3 spectral flames which orbit her for up to 5 seconds. After a brief delay, each flame will shoot to an enemy champion or minion, which prioritizes the champions. After enemy champions, it then prioritizes targets that you last hit with the basic attack. This ability deals between 40 and 140 damage based on rank, plus 40% of your AP. Multiple flames can hit the same target, but each flame only deals 30% damage beyond the first. So the additional damage is between 12 and 42 based on the rank, plus 12% AP. Now doing some simple math, because we do have one that hits for 40% AP and then 2 afterwards that can hit for 12% AP, we have 64% AP with the base damage between 64 and 224. The range of the ability is 550, it costs 50 mana, and the cooldown goes from 9 to 5 seconds at max rank. This ability does a lot more damage than our E, so we do max this one second, right behind our Q. Now, although this ability doesn't have a massive range, it is really easy to get off if we do have our ultimate. If we were in a situation where no enemy minions were around and we only needed one W to go off on an enemy champion to kill them, we could activate our W, use our R to jump in, and the bolts would hit that target. Ahri's last basic ability, which is pink and fucked up my whole blue color scheme, is called Charm. Ahri blows a kiss in a line, dealing magic damage to the first enemy hit and charming them. So she's a champion that runs around trying to kiss everybody. What a whore. It deals between 60 and 200 base damage, plus 50% AP, and the duration is between 1 and 2 seconds. Must not have been great. The range is 975, the speed is 1600, the cost is 85 mana, and the cooldown is 12 seconds. If you can land this ability, your combo is extremely easy to get off. When this does land, you can simply shoot your Q right behind and you will automatically get both hits off. You can then follow that up by simply walking towards them and get your W off. If needed, you can use your ultimate to get in there instead. This ability is great since it does let you get your combo off, but we only really need one single point in it early, so of course we max this one last. It's a great ability to be used on people trying to gank you as well. If you do have the enemy jungler coming in for a gank, you can charm them and simply walk away. It's also incredibly effective at ganking lanes. You can use your ultimate to jump past minions, land an E, and secure a very, very easy kill for your teammates. Alright, so now we arrive at her ultimate, which is called Spirit Rush. And damn, is this ever a good ultimate. Ahri dashes in the direction of the cursor and fires up to 3 energy bolts that each pursue one of the nearest visible enemies, dealing magic damage. Each of these enemies can only be hit by 1 bolt at a time, and the magic damage is between 70 and 150 plus 30% AP. Spirit Rush can be cast twice more within 10 seconds of activation at no additional cost before going on cooldown. So if you hit the same target 3 times, you will be doing between 210 and 450 base based on the rank of the ultimate, plus 90% AP. The range of the jump is 450 and the range of the bolt 600, the cost is 100 mana, and the cooldown is 110 to 95 to 80 seconds. So the damage is pretty decent if you get it off multiple times on the same target, but the main reason this ability is so amazing is the mobility it provides. You can use it to either dive onto an enemy champion for easy kills, or you can use it to escape if you are in an unfavorable situation or getting ganked. At max rank without any cooldown reduction, it's only an 80-second cooldown. This means basically every 80 seconds you have 3 flashes. One great use of this ability is to jump behind minions and engage onto an enemy champion. Lots of people think they're somewhat safe when there are minions around, however, not against an Ahri. Since your charm only goes off on the first enemy it does hit, it's amazing, like I said, to use to jump behind minions so you can actually get off that charm. Using your first charge of your ultimate, then quickly charming, can catch people off guard really fast as they don't really have the reaction time to deal with it. When you're roaming the map and ganking lanes for your teammates, make sure you jump behind the minions as well, pull them in with the charm, and then follow up on them. Alright, so now let's look at the ability order and then we'll move on to the item build. So this of course starts with your ultimate, which is Spirit Rush. You take it at 6, 11, and 16. We then move on to Orb of Deception for the minion clear and harassment it provides. We take it at 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. We then move on to our W, which is Foxfire, for the great damage it provides. We take it at 4, 8, 10, 12, and 13. Last is our charm. We only need 1 early point for the CC it provides, so we take it at 2, 14, 15, 17, and 18. Our item build starts with a Doran's Ring, 2 health potions, and a warding totem. We then rush into a Morellonomicon, getting the Lost Chapter part first. The Lost Chapter gives us some nice ability power, some mana into our mana pool, and some nice mana sustain as well. The Morellonomicon does the same, of course, with higher stats, but also adds some much needed cooldown reduction at 20%. A nice little bonus as well is it gives grievous wounds for any champions that abuse healing. The next item we grab is a Luden's Echo. This is a fantastic item on Ahri since it does give 100 ability power and 10 movement speed. Since she is a champion that roams around so much, the movement speed is incredible. It also has a passive that procs a bunch of damage and does a nice little AoE, so you can contribute more into team fights. To get through any early magic resist, we get some Sorceress Boots to help deal with that. And finally, a Farsight Alteration so we can see people farther away. It is better than the general warding totem. In our full build, we then add a Rabadon's Death Cap, Void Staff, and Zhonya's. The Rabadon's Death Cap is just a pure AP item and will make you do tons and tons of damage so you can actually delete targets. Void Staff is great in the 5th slot because people will start getting magic resist at that point and then you're able to go right through it. Zhonya, as you all know, is one of the best defensive pickups for any AP mage, so, Ahri is not really any exception to that rule. Zhonya's is just an incredible item all around. If you are against an AD mid laner that can be somewhat hard for Ahri, like, say, a Talon, you may want to get the Seeker's Arm Guard as your first item. This will give you some much needed armor to help deal with the harassment, and then you can go on with the full build afterward. Abyssal Scepter is a great alternative for Ahri if she is in a hard mid lane matchup and she needs some extra magic resist really early on. The passive part of the item that gives -20 magic resist when she is near people is great for her as well, since she does usually move in for kills, being that her range isn't massive and she has tons of mobility. Finally, if you would like to add some slows onto her abilities, you can get a Rylai's. And yes, I pronounced it correctly this time. I'm fucking awesome. This item just gives her some nice stats, and it does add a bunch of health, giving her a larger health pool, so she is a little bit tankier than she would be without this item. So now we're going to look at some of the hardest matchups for Ahri, and the first one is LeBlanc. LeBlanc is a bitch for Ahri to deal with. The early game is brutal, and there's very little counterplay for Ahri. LeBlanc has very heavy burst, hard CC, and high mobility, which is the perfect kit against Ahri. A good LeBlanc will start zoning Ahri at level 2 because you can't really trade with her. The best thing you can do as Ahri is to play very passively and don't go in for too many trades. Use your Orb of Deception to last hit as much as possible and get whatever you can in the lane. The best way to actually kill a LeBlanc is by using your combo as fast as you can. LeBlanc is also very mobile, and if you do miss any of your skills, she's going to be able to slip away rather easily. The one thing Ahri does have over LeBlanc though is her sustain. Try to get your mana regeneration items as soon as possible so you can throw out more orbs and use them to sustain off of minions and LeBlanc if possible. This is one of the champions you'll want to get your Abyssal Scepter first. This will make dealing with LeBlanc's harassment much easier, and then you can move on to your core build. Try and use your ultimate as effectively as possible by dodging all of her chains. If she doesn't land her chains, she can't actually lock you down for kills. Another hard matchup for Ahri is Annie, and it's because she can stun you and insta-burst you. Your mobility doesn't matter a whole ton when you are dead in one single stun. She's also incredible against Ahri because Tibbers can actually absorb Charm, Foxfire, and Spirit Rush hits. Going in for a kill even on a low health Annie can be really hard due to this. You can't kill what you can't hit. The matchup will be relatively easy for Ahri, but it changes drastically at level 6. The best thing to do at this point is to avoid fights altogether and poke her down with Orb of Deception whenever you can. When she is low, then you can finally engage. In the lane, if possible, try to count how many stacks you think she has on her passive. Most Annies will sit around 3 stacks so she can proc her Molten Shield to get the next one so she can stun you, but try to keep track of when she has that available. One big way to turn around this matchup, however, is help from your jungle. Annie is incredibly immobile, so if you get jungle help, you can get some easy kills. Generally, Annie will probably be using her flash to all-in you with her Tibbers, so she won't have it for her own escapes. Make sure you are communicating with your jungler so he knows when Annie doesn't have flash up so he can get some free kills. With this matchup, you pretty much just have to play as safely as possible and pick up a very early Abyssal Scepter so you can hopefully survive some of the burst. Our next hard matchup is Diana. Diana has pretty decent burst and she has great poke with her Crescent Strike. She's also naturally tankier than a lot of the mid laners out there, so it can be somewhat hard for Ahri to actually bring her down. In this matchup, you have to be really patient with your charm and wait for Diana to jump onto you. This should be quite easy to land when she is in melee range, and you can either follow up with damage or go for an escape. This is another matchup where I would recommend getting an Abyssal Scepter so you can deal with the harassment that comes for her Crescent Strike. The best way to play this matchup is to try and hit with your Orb of Deception early game for poke and save your charm for when she jumps onto you. Try not to engage her unless you have your ultimate. She is a champion that needs to stick onto you, and if you are jumping away, it'll be much easier to deal with her. Other than that, try to dodge her Crescent Strike as much as possible so her Lunar Rush doesn't get reset. Our last hard matchup for Ahri is Kassadin. A lot of this comes from the fact that Ahri can't really deal with Kassadin's Null Sphere since she can't put out enough damage to deal with that magic shield. The damage early on from Orb of Deception is not that great at all, and it won't crack through the shield, meaning Kassadin can trade a hell of a lot more damage onto Ahri than she can do in return. The best way to trade damage onto Kassadin, believe it or not, is through your auto attacks. He is melee, so he'll be somewhat close, and his Sphere Shield only blocks magic damage, so you will be dealing the full amount with your autos. Now in this matchup, you also don't really want to spam your abilities too much because of his Force Pulse. If you end up cleaning all the minions with your Q over and over again, he's going to win this lane even easier. If you do end up trying to go for a kill and you miss your charm, don't keep going for the kill. You need to back the hell off. If you are struggling in lane, you can get an Abyssal Scepter yet again, but usually this isn't completely necessary. I just go for the normal core build and try to do what I can in lane and roam around. The Kassadin can become a big issue for your team since you can't really shut him down, so I would avoid this matchup at all costs. So that pretty much covers it for our Ahri guide. I'd also like to mention we do have a full set of skin reviews on Ahri, so you can find those in the description and in the comments. You can find more of our guides on our website, which is www.egamingtv.com. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this guide, we do a lot of skin giveaways at eGamingTV, so make sure you guys do go to Twitter, which is at egaming_TV, and send us a follow. If you guys did like this video, please like and subscribe, and of course, if you guys have any comments or suggestions, please leave those in the comments as I read through them all the time. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys around the YouTube channel.